So last week, if you remember, Father Steve kind of wrapped up a series of homilies on how Jesus made the impossible possible. So this week, we're going to start a new series, as Rafi had said, called Return to Sender. So I need to ask, you can see it up there. When you hear Return to Sender, what is one of the first things that pops into your mind? Elvis. All right, it's my man right there. That's Dan. Elvis. So I couldn't get Dan to play Elvis at Mass, though. So you'll have to listen to him when you go home. But Return to Sender. It's a short series, just 2 weeks. And we called it Return to Sender because this week we're going to hear a story of how Jesus sent his apostles out into the world. And then next week, we're going to hear a story of what happens when they come back. So Return to Sender. And when I was reading the readings for this series, a phrase that stuck in my head for quite a while was, "What's next?" And I just couldn't get that to go away. It was always, "What's next?" And it reminded me of when I was in college. I worked at Buick, and I worked for a guy named Joe. His real name was Jose, but we just called him Joe. So I worked for Joe for 3 months at a time, and he would always have a project for me to do. But the way Joe worked, he never told me, "This is the start, here's all the things you have to do, and this is the finish." Instead, he would give me one task to do at a time. He'd say, "You go do this, and when you're done, come back." So I would do whatever he asked, and I'd come back. I'd say, "Okay, Joe, what's next?" I would do that for 3 months. Yeah, it got a little tiring. But eventually, when the 3 months ended, I could look back and I could see how every single task was important, and that led to the completion of the project at the end. So if I went back and asked, "What's next?" everything went smooth. But all I had to do was stop going back or stop asking what's next, and everything would fall apart, right? Everything would stop. So as I'm going through these readings, I wondered, okay, did the disciples at that time, the apostles, did they have that thought in their head? You know, were they like, "Okay, Jesus, we spent a lot of time with you so far, and we've seen everything you can do. We saw you calm storms. We saw you heal people. We saw you cast demons out of people. We even saw you raise people from the dead. We saw you do things we thought were impossible. And you know what? We love you more than anything. There's no other person in the world we'd rather be with than you. But Jesus, what's next?" So if that thought was running through their mind, what's next? That means that all that time that they spent with Jesus up until then was really important. But that wasn't everything. That wasn't all. Something came next. And what came next for them was to be sent out by Jesus into the world to do what he did. So if we take that and apply it to us right here at Holy Redeemer, we do a lot of things here that serve a very important purpose. The most important thing we do here is the Mass. But we do other things. First Friday of the month, we do Encounter here, which is praise and worship in the presence of Jesus. We have the Adoration Chapel. We do Alpha workshops. We have small groups. We have retreats. We have youth group. We have a religious ed program. We have Vacation Bible School. And a whole bunch of other things, along with our own personal prayer life, all give us an opportunity to meet, know, fall in love with, and be in the presence of Jesus. All those things help us to become and to strengthen our relationship as his disciples. But that's not all. Something comes next. So we don't do those things just to feed our own soul. We don't do those things just to strengthen our own personal relationship with Jesus. We do those things to get us ready for what's next. And what's next for us is the same thing that was next for the apostles that were walking with Jesus. To be sent out of here today by Jesus, to help him continue his mission and to invite people here to this community that is centered on him. That's what's next for us. And that can seem scary and it can seem impossible, right? But the good news is Jesus gives us everything we need to do that. You know, when he sent his apostles out, he didn't send them out alone, right? He sent them out 2 by 2. So he doesn't send us out alone either. We're all in this together. So I want you to do something your parents and grandparents told you were never supposed to do in church. I want you to look around. Look around. Al, look behind you. Everybody look around. See everybody that's here. Everybody is here with you. Jesus gave us each other. He gave us each other to encourage one another, to support one another, to pray for one another. So we don't go alone. And I find that pretty inspiring, that I don't have to do this by myself. The next thing Jesus told his apostles was, take nothing for your journey. In their simplicity, God would give them whatever they needed. So the same for us. When we go, God will give us whatever we need. When we go from here, possessions, status, that's not required. When we go from here, the ability to speak eloquently or to be convincing, that really doesn't matter. When we go from here having some special knowledge or high-level education, no, that's not necessary. When we go from here, we go with simple things. We go with the love of Jesus. We go with the love and desire to be with the person we are being sent to. We go with a will to listen. We go with a story, our story. And when the time is right, we get to tell our story of how being a disciple of Jesus has affected our life. Everything else, God takes care of. I find that very reassuring, that he would take care of everything else. So we don't go alone. He'll give us whatever we need. What was the last thing he did? What was the last thing he told them? I'm looking at you because I forgot. You don't know. He wasn't paying attention. So we don't go alone. What was the second thing I said? Boy, what's going on up here? Gives us what we need. Come on, he did something else. He'll take care of the rest. Oh, this is it. I remember now looking at you. He even told his apostles how to respond based on how people reacted to him, right? If you go and you're rejected, leave. If you go and you're accepted, stay. Pretty simple. Either stay or leave. So that means for us, when we go out, some people are going to accept us, right? And that's really cool. That's nice. So what do? We stay. And we accompany them on the journey to this community that is centered on Jesus. But some people are going to avoid us or flat out reject us. And that's the hard part. Knowing that can keep us from going out. Just that little fact. So what do we do there? What do we do in that case? Well, Jesus encourages us first not to take it personal. You're not the one they're rejecting. He's the one they're rejecting. So don't take it personal. Don't get hurt and don't dwell on it. Just move on. So we don't have to nag. We don't have to pursue. The only thing we need to do is keep an open and loving heart towards that person. So that when God works in their life, at some point, they might have a change of heart or a change of mind. They'll always have somebody to come back to. So we don't have to burn bridges. We don't have to slam doors. They will have us to come back to. And I find that really encouraging. So we come here today, just like I would do to Joe. Joe, what's next? Say, Jesus, we've been with you for a long time now. We know you. We love you. There's no other person in the world we'd rather be with than you. But what's next? And in response, Jesus sends us, all of us, today, out into the world. Inspired by one another, reassured that he'll take care of everything, and encouraged to keep on going, no matter how people respond to us. To keep on preaching his message, to keep on telling our stories, to keep on inviting people here to this community that is centered on him. So you are sent out today to do just that. When you leave these doors, that is what's next.